Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall. On the other end is Pascal Floor, and we've been talking about it recently with your tattoo, but it's visually more apparent this time, at least to me, because I think you weren't wearing short sleeves, or rather a vest top last time. It's done, right? You're finished.
It is finished, yeah. And I'm very happy and satisfied with the results. As I already said earlier, I wasn't even sure when we got into the project of whether this is actually able to pull this off, because there was a lot of black lines underneath. And if you have something like this, of course you need something bigger and darker to then cover it. And something like this is already in itself quite complex. And then trying to cover it, I think it took a lot more concentration from my tattoo parlor than the usual cover-ups of all right, let's do something that is bigger. Simply because normally you don't get your entire arm covered. And if you do, then you're always getting something like a blackout tattoo or something like this.
The concentration on that can't be high, can it? It's like coloring in.
Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, this one session when I was there, they had a female blackout artist there who's only specialized in blacking out, and she said it's just, and you could see it, very, very thick needles, a lot on side by side, and it's just rubbing it into the skin.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It looks quite painful, to be honest. And she also says that it is probably the most painful way to get a tattoo done.
It's funny, I almost sent you this thing. I don't know if I even want to speak about it to you. It's specific to tattoos, and it's something you mentioned before in terms of their safety. Because you've just had this done, I don't know if I want to say what I've seen.
Go ahead, man. I mean, it's on me either way.
I know. It kind of put me off. It kind of was a bit triggering, because it's similar to when I was eating clean and came across If It Fits Your Macros. It was you're telling me everything I've been doing is a waste of time, or I didn't need to eat this way to get results. So this was you're telling me I've got all this ink on my skin and it's leading to this poor health outcome or whatever. But I don't think that the study that was linked was particularly rigorous. It was, I think, an ecological study. I don't know if that's the right words. It was a basically correlative study on people with tattoos seem to get more of this negative health outcome. Wow. It's similar to the causation of, I don't know, red meat and cancer, or lots of correlations, and there's so many different variables that go into it, because at least as far as I'm concerned, the typical person to have tattoos is not the healthiest individual.
No.
Typically, they're actually the other way, very unhealthy. Or most of the vegan diets and them being good for longevity, but it's that person just lives a healthier lifestyle.
100%. That's also the first thought that came to my mind. Most of the people who don't just have a small tattoo, because I think it's a great amount of the population who has at least a smaller tattoo or something like this. But those who are very much inked to the gills, so to speak, those are the ones most of the time not living the most healthy life, based on my experience. Now, maybe it then turns later in life, but when they are getting into things, when they are then the ones who are actually getting everything inked up, it's often the ones who are partying, taking drugs, consuming alcohol, not doing a lot of sports and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when you look at tattoo artists in general, at least the ones I tend to see, quite a few of them are smokers. They don't really take care of their nutrition. However, funnily enough, I follow a few I follow a lot of anime guys, and the number of them who I see lifting in the gym and they're posting up their workouts and stuff, I'm damn, there's something about this anime and people get into the gym and stuff. But on that study, it's as well, there was something really that was just a red flag for me, was there seemed to be no correlation between the coverage of tattoo you had and the likelihood of bad health outcomes. It was almost
so you would have thought the amount of tattoos you have, or what?
Yeah, you would have thought you're more likely to get the bad health outcomes the more ink coverage you have, because if it's the ink that's causing the problem, the more you have, the worse it is. Whereas there was no correlation with the amount you had. I was that makes no sense.
No.
So I actually sent it.
Totally. I totally agree with you, because if that was the culprit for then more negative health outcomes, you would assume that if your body is exposed to those heavy metals or pigments that are in there, which are often kind of metals, then you would automatically assume with increased amount and exposure, then you would automatically have like worse health outcomes.
Yeah. It's funny. I sent it to Dr. Andrea Love because she has tattoos and this is kind of her area. And she said actually she had already seen it because it came up on just my Reels feed. She'd already seen it and she's working on it with another colleague to like break down the study and stuff. So I'm kind of waiting on that to see what they say because she's way more informed in that space than I could ever be. But it's just funny then seeing people's comments on that post. It was like something along the lines of just, you know, people are looking for why am I unhealthy? And then they see this and they're like, oh, I have tattoos. Maybe that was the cause of all my poor health outcomes. It was the tattoos, right? And so it's similar to gut health and people taking certain supplements and then being like, it was that was the problem. It's like, was it that, or did that just like you removed those things from your diet, it made your diet overall more healthy, then you had healthier outcomes. It wasn't that food, or I don't know, bread makes me bloated, and when they eat bread they eat a whole loaf or something like this. It's like, was it the bread or just the quantity, because you can't control yourself surrounding that actual food? So it's just it just attracts that type of person that's just like, yeah, I always knew tattoos were awful for you, why would anyone get them done? It's like, well, they've been around for quite a long time. So
yeah, and I'm not saying that there may not be any kind of dangers to them, because it's like I said just a couple of weeks back that maybe there is something to it. Maybe you are exposing yourself to a little bit higher risk of some kind of disease, you know. At the same time though, if you're living your life all of the time like this, then you would not take any kind of risks. And I think a little bit of risk in life is totally worth it, in my opinion, when the risk to reward ratio is in favor of course, the reward for you specifically. I'm not saying though that I'm downplaying then the potential risks that there are, or maybe, because of course it would also concern me and I want to live for as long as possible. And I know what this sounds like if it stands in direct contrast to what it is that I'm doing in this regard. But I mean, even if you're trying to live your healthiest life possible, it's not guaranteed that you're living the longest life.
No, and I think it's your definition of living, right? Like living as long as possible. I call living like actually enjoying life, like getting stuff out of life. Just being alive isn't living, in my opinion. Like you could live really long, or being alive for a long time isn't the same as living for a long time, if that makes sense. Actually, I think Peter Attia talks this about in his book. I haven't got that far, but I think he differentiates between like being alive versus being like functionally alive. Like you could be crippled but alive till you're 100 versus someone who's like physically really active and mobile and can do everything they want and they live till 80 or whatever. It's like, well, which would you rather? 20 years of continuing to be, I don't know, bedridden or what have you. Anyway, I just thought it was funny because you'd spoken about it and then this reel came up and I was like, it was a bit triggering because just I think it was a bit overzealous, and also the guy that posted it, not that the study itself was fine. It was in a peer-reviewed like article, whatever, or peer-reviewed study, but he started talking about like energy. He was like, if you have a bad relationship with your tattoos, I can only imagine that's going to have poor health outcomes for you. As if you have like good energy, the tattoos remind you of like positive things. It was like all of this, and that was quite funny as well.
It is interesting, nonetheless, that's for sure. But I think this is opening up a can of worms that you will never really find a satisfying answer to. And it's kind of the same. So in that situation, if someone were to listen to us, they don't have any kind of tattoos, they are a little bit more objective in that sense, they would say like, why are you now justifying your decision? What it is that you're trying to do is try to make it fit your bias. And that is totally true, right? We probably don't want this to be the case.
Yeah, I definitely hope that everything I'm saying, we clearly have a bias. I'm definitely biased to hoping that tattoos don't have a negative health outcome, because as I got them, it wasn't something that I was concerned about. It wasn't something that was on my radar of, oh, this is a risk. It was more just like, oh, the risk of infection, the risk of not liking it in future. It wasn't like, this is fundamentally going to increase my chances of X health outcome happening in future. I don't think there is data available to actually say that. Like even the article, it said it may increase your kind of risk of disease by this percentage.
I think this will take a long time before we have accurate data, especially because when did tattoos become very popular? It was probably kind of somewhere in the 90s. But this wasn't really the time where a lot of people got kind of full body sleeves, except for maybe people such as Yakuzas or so. But still, to that time, it wasn't really the norm to get everything done, everything covered. And I think that first happened and started to occur with the rise and popularization of the internet, when it started from just like purchasing some magazines, where it was very much niche, into more of a global popularized kind of thing, right? It has become a more global phenomenon, especially also with the rise of so many different styles. I think it's much more common to get a lot of tattoos done now. I think that there is probably a much bigger or kind of subject size, sample size of people who have nearly the entire body covered. And it will now first take maybe 40, 50, 60 years before we then can draw any kind of conclusion from the mortality rate of those with a lot of tattoos and those with no tattoos whatsoever, of whether with the people with a lot of tattoos just die earlier in general. And then, though, it comes back to the things that you've brought up like earlier. Is it, though, due to the tattoos or due to the lifestyle that they are living?
Yeah, I guess it's, at least in this case, it was like a specific disease. So I think, I don't want to say it because I'm not even, it was a certain type of cancer anyway. I think it was maybe lymphoma cancer, like of your lymph system, essentially. So
it would make sense.
Yeah, it would make sense. And this was where people were commenting and being like, oh yeah, my ex-girlfriend's partner had her lymph nodes removed, and when they removed them, they were full of ink. And it was like, I don't know, like part of me, like, why would this person lie? But also, man, that sounds really crazy to happen. But I guess we just don't have that data. And I feel like, again, tattoos have been around for so long. I feel like people would have noticed this, like you would have noticed as like a healthcare practitioner that, all these people who are coming in,
there's just like a massive rise in a certain type of cancer, you mean?
Yeah, you'd kind of see it, I would have thought. So I don't know, it's we'll see. That's why I'm interested to see what Andrea says. So I don't want to chase her on it, because then I'll seem like one of those like really like, I don't know, hypochondriac like health nerds, and I'm like,
Steve, let's change topic though.
Yeah, please do.
So I have the feeling that here the last 2 or 3 podcast episodes, we have talked about things that people may disagree with or don't really like as much as our stances are. That's why I want to be careful with that subject and topic about kind of cold showers, Steve. It's just, I know that there is a common conception of when you are having cold showers, you are improving and increasing your immune system and function overall. And I have no idea whatsoever, Steve, because I like to shower warm. Cold showers are simply not for me, right? So even if it does improve your immune system, I'm still probably going to shower warm. The thing is, though, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think that many people, especially in the fitness industry, are also then interested and drawn to something like this, because they are mostly about self-optimization and health and all that kind of stuff. And I just heard Hugo, like yesterday, saying that his father is always showering or having cold showers, and he reasons that with the explanation of like it improves your immune system. And I said, like, is that really so, Hugo? I mean, I can think of so many other things that definitely have an improvement of your immune function and immune system. And with cold showers, I'm not entirely certain. And I would like to hear your take on it, of whether you have more information about it, whether there's something about it. I don't know.
So it's funny. With these things, there's lots of things like this. For example, cold showers is just like an easy thing to implement into your lifestyle, similar to taking a certain supplement. And whenever I hear people like really bigging up certain things where it's like clearly this is just something you should be doing. It's a no-brainer, like creatine or something. Like, it's this supplement, and they're just like, why wouldn't you be taking this? Or why wouldn't you be doing cold shower? It clearly improves your immune function. I'm like, the kind of people I respect in our industry and space would be talking about it if it actually had that sort of result, because they are on the cutting edge of the research and staying on top of those things. They aren't so much practitioners. They are literally in the field to be taking care of those sort of stuff. So if they're not talking about it, I'm already like skeptical as fuck, where I'm like, this is either having a very small increase in whatever you're trying to achieve, or it's basically the evidence we have isn't strong enough to say anything much. That's my like first port of call. I have never looked into cold showers that strongly because for that reason, it to me looks like a fad that's just come in and people are like, oh, like I can just do this thing. It's simple and it's going to improve my immune function. Why wouldn't I do it? When, like you said, there's much bigger rocks that you can probably kind of use to improve that. And from my very limited understanding of like cold showers and, I don't know, ice baths in the morning and stuff, a lot of it from what I gather is a kind of, it builds resilience. Like in terms of if you can suffer through that first thing in the morning, then through the rest of the day, you're going to be better able to deal with the pressures of the rest of the day. This is similar to, I don't know if you've heard people talk about, if you get your phone in the morning and you use your phone and you get some dopamine increase because of this, then you'll be chasing dopamine throughout the entire day because of this. Maybe Hattie even brought it up when she came on the podcast, which isn't out yet, but maybe she even brought it up. I'm not sure. Maybe I heard someone else bring it up. I can't completely remember. And whenever I hear things like that, I'm just like, is that true? Like, that just sounds a bit too far-fetched to me. So it's not that I have, like, it's not saying they're definitely wrong. It's just I'd have to look into it to work it out. I know, for example, like I look at my phone when I go to the toilet in the morning, and I'm not sure that not looking at it, like if I've done that before too, it's nothing I'm really noticing at least. So, and again, I would expect people I trust as experts to be talking about it if it's having such strong impacts. And not to say those experts are always right, but most of the time they are, which is why I consider them an expert. So that's kind of my position on it, at least.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that I'm fairly similar to your take as well when it comes to this. And I don't want to downplay it, especially because I'm not very much aware of the evidence, but I would categorize it though in the same category such as saunas, which were touted to improve recovery and enhance recovery, when then it turned out that it actually decreases the recovery because you are inducing a high amount of stress on the system. Now, of course, stress is always then followed by an adaptive response. And in that case, it may very well be the case as well. But to me, just without knowing the data and the potential thinking through everything, right? It could very well be that now someone is actually then commenting down below saying like, hey, I have the evidence here, and what it is that you're not considering is XYZ. That could very well be, right? But just for me, from my personal perspective, I don't know what, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute under a cold shower should have that significant impact on your immune system in comparison to something else. Like that small, minute exposure to just cold water, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I'm trying to find something as to why that should make sense. But it's kind of the same with other things that popped up in the past as well, such as, I don't know.
I have one.
No, go ahead.
Avoiding caffeine first thing in the morning, the Huberman.
Yeah, something like this. Or, I mean, there are plenty of examples where I was also then skeptical about, for example, protein spikes of like that protein window where I was, sure, why should it only be like 4 hours and stuff like this, you know? And
the I tried to period. And
yeah,
that,
exactly.
Yeah.
I tried to rationalize it, tried to find reasons as to why this could actually mechanistically be correct, but it couldn't. At least to me, it didn't really make a lot of sense. And the same goes here as well. Why should cold water exposure for such a short period of time have such a significant impact when other things that probably have a bigger impact on your immune system with maybe even bigger exposure doesn't really have that much of an impact. Or why should cold water? So once again, this is just coming from my perspective without having the scientific literature. But I think it also goes back to something like caloric expenditure and cardio. You know, where it's like, okay, if you really want to be in a caloric deficit, why are you going down that inconvenient route of doing tons of cardio, which then causes a lot of stress, a lot of discomfort, it takes up time, and often it results in not as many calories burned as you would like to. Why are you going down that road instead of just cutting a couple of calories? Or the same principle when it comes to training and caloric expenditure versus doing something in the household, for example.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if naturals are particularly bad for it because we don't have the anabolic strong levers to pull up on. Because I do think sometimes people who are enhanced might look at some of the natural discussions that we have where, we can do X change, we get 2% more of Y outcome. And they're just like, fucking joke, because if you just increase whatever anabolic, you get like 200 times the outcome. So why would I worry about this tiny little thing that's insignificant at the end of the day? And so I think natural sometimes, because we don't have many levers to pull upon, we're just like, cold shower, could this possibly in any way, shape or form help my muscle growth? Because it's my immune system and then I don't get ill, whatever. Like I kind of get it. But at the same time, these things can end up being stressors because I don't know if I assume you've tried. I've tried actually doing a cold shower. It's fucking annoying.
I hate it. Just the same goes. So Steve, I was, as you know, I grew up in the Northern Sea. And I mean, not in the water, but it was an island, half an island, right? It was just connected with the mainland by one street. And so I was surrounded by water. And I hate cold water. So I wasn't the guy who was in December doing some kind of winter bathing, such as other people do. I hate it. Right? And the same goes there as well. For me, probably it causes way more stress than it has any kind of benefits to it.
I guess that's similar to people talk about, like the thing I think about is caffeine often. People talk about like periodizing that to a strict degree where they'll have more when they're overreaching and then have less when they're in the deload and resensitized to it. And I'm like, there's so many manipulations there, which quote unquote on paper could theorize to be somewhat optimal. But in my eyes, I'm just like, I use caffeine less as a performance booster, less as anything but just something I enjoy. I keep a low dose, sometimes creep up a little bit if I'm feeling a bit tired or I'm really like fancying it. But I prioritize sleep much more than the potential performance increase. You could kind of, what's it called? Cut off your nose to spite your face type of thing with those. I think sometimes people just get down rabbit holes of like trying to be really nuanced and sciencey. It's like, it comes back to that, what's it called? The meme where it's the
bell-shaped curve.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like
200 IQ on the right side and 50 IQ on the left side. And then it's kind of mid-curving it.
Yeah, basically you come back to what the dumbass at the start said, but with a slightly, you understand it having gone down the rabbit hole of bullshit that is like very sciencey. It's like, hey, it's funny.
And I think though, of course, you can use it if you feel great after it. And I think that this applies to every kind of modality, any kind of things that you can do in order to feel good, right? This the same with massaging that turned out of like, okay, it doesn't have any kind of benefits also there for recovery or injury prevention or anything alike. However, if that does make you, just the massage, the process of massaging does make you feel more calm and relaxed, it already serves a purpose. It already has a benefit. Maybe it's not the massage in itself, like deep tissue work and stuff, but it's more like that you are able to calm down in an environment like this. Maybe it's kind of the same when it comes to cold showers or something like saunas, that just the environment is making you be able to really calm down. Whereas for others, it's more of a stressor that doesn't really add any kind of benefit to them.
Sorry, I was like, I need to find out if there's any evidence here on cold showers, and I was just writing into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So it says how basically
the best resource to check.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, can you actually give me a like PubMed reference, not just garage gym reviews as their reference for science?
There is a plugin though, or an add-on that you can go into that is then using that that model by ChatGPT.
Okay.
Which is then referencing kind of scientific literature.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes I know there's a paper that I'm looking for. It was like a systematic review by Baz et al. 2022 on set volumes for hypertrophy. And I was literally like, can you give me this reference? And it was giving me like other things. I was like, no, I want this one study. I was like, actually Google's better when I'm trying to find that specific thing. So right now, yeah, again, as we've said with ChatGPT before, it will just kind of, if someone's written an article saying science says cold showers improve your immune system, and there's shitloads of those articles online, it's going to say back to you, yeah, there probably is some science there. It's like, but you're just referencing stuff online. So anyway, I'm sure there's someone who knows strongly, who's listening, whether or not there's anything to that. Yeah. But I do think it's relevant for sure. When people hear sound bites get repeated, especially easy ones like that. And then because something just gets repeated more often, it now sounds more credible. But it's like, is it actually? Or should we dig into this and find out if there's actually any research to suggest that it's true? I don't know, like not eating carbohydrates after 6 p.m. or whatever it was that initially came out. It's like, actually, it doesn't seem like there's anything to support that claim up.
And that is something that I want to teach my kids, that they are more than able to and also willing to sometimes ask questions of, is that really the case? Because I know for a fact that I haven't done this for a long time when I was growing up, because I had no one to teach me, and I wasn't going into the academic road at first. And then at some point, especially due to the fitness industry, I started, and also being in the evidence realm, I started to then question more and more things and don't just take it for granted. And I'm very thankful for the fitness industry and bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff, that it has kind of taught me that. And that's not to say that you now need to put on the tinfoil hat and be like, question everything, nothing is what it seems and all that kind of stuff, you know? But when it comes to just like a typically a normalized statement such as cold showers are good for your immune system, like, is that really so? And this is just one of many, many, many examples. And we know for a fact there are so many things that are generally being touted that have been disproven as well.
Yeah. Is now a good time for a break?
Yes, it is.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
We're back. So
this
might be good. How's actually? I can talk about you. How's your back doing? First of all,
it's getting better and better. So with the physio, it's like I said, the physio that I'm working with right now has also been the physio that I've worked with like last year when it comes to my hip, and he's a really competent guy. Honestly, I have the feeling that his approach is always. Also, this is probably coming from a place of being biased, so that it fits my bias in the way that I want to have things done. I'm someone who wants to get moving. I want to have dynamic movements. exercises to work on the problem area instead of kind of lying there getting some warmth therapy or so. That doesn't do jack shit for me personally. And this may also then be a psychological thing. When I'm lying there 20 minutes with just some warmth on my back, I'm just like, what the fuck is this? And this is me. Once again, I just want to make it very clear for the listeners who then criticize when we are skeptical about physiotherapy. If it has always helped you and you have found someone great, perfect. I'm very happy for you, right? But my experience so far hasn't been the greatest in many instances. And that's why I'm just voicing my opinion that I'm critical when it comes to certain modalities, because I've seen certain things already. But here, in that instance, he's a very competent guy, and we are working on my back and also hip at the same time, because it's probably stemming from the same issues. And I have the feeling that he's actually very, very much helpful in that regard. He points out some very good things, shows me some very good exercises. And for me, it's also just like someone who gives me some direction, which is also something that Mike has already done in the podcast that we have recorded as well. And that is something that was already quite helpful, that he meets me where I am, of like, hey, I see myself as somewhat of an athlete, and I want and I'm ready to do something in order to improve that. It's not just like I snap my finger, I'm lying there, just want to relax, and hopefully it's getting fixed. Yeah. Give me some exercise, give me some movements that I can do and incorporate in order to actually then strengthen certain body parts, and by that, getting fitter again. And I have the feeling right now I'm on a good path when it comes to this.
That's good. Are there any movements you currently can't do still, or are you able to?
So right now, I'm trying to avoid anything that is just like heavy compound lifts, such as benches, such as squats, heavy squats, and such as deadlifts. And maybe I'm also at the point where I have to say goodbye to those kind of things. And I'm not saying that I'm super, super old already, but I mean, I'm turning 37 this year, which is crazy to say out loud. And at some point, it's probably just getting harder and harder on my body to go through those movements, because there is definitely wear and tear due to everything that you're doing in life, right? And maybe even not doing in life, that's for sure as well. And that's why right now I'm using more and more kind of body weighted movements as well. Things where I can move a little bit more freely, such as Bulgarian split squats, for example, where I can shift my hip to the right position and try my very best focusing on that so that there's no hip shift going on, all that kind of stuff, Steve. And that's basically what I'm doing.
I'm glad it's improving. And yeah, I remember even like moving out of powerlifting or power building and just specifically going for hypertrophy, like letting go of some of those compound barbell lifts. Not to say you can't use them, like for sure they can be productive for hypertrophy, but for me at least, like squats, I loved them, but they just were not the best to grow, and so it was hard to let go initially. But once you've let go, it's like actually being able to train pain-free or whatever it is, like more productively, it's worth just saying bye to it. So
that's
I'm
the
glad
thing.
That you're in that position.
And I've also grown when it comes to not using the heaviest load on all of the movements that you're doing, and also chasing the load on the barbell, because I've learned that I can stimulate my muscles to a proper extent even with less load, or even very much significantly less load. And I think that Bulgarian split squats are a perfect example of it. If you're elevating your front foot and your back foot so that you have a great range of motion, you're putting on some squatting shoes so that you have the deepest knee flexion possible, mate, you don't really need a lot of weight in order to make that happen, happen in the sense of like getting a great stimulus. And I have the feeling that it does me so much better on my connective tissue. I would love to be the guy who's just like ripping everything apart and still being fine, but I'm not. And because I'm not, I have to come to terms with it, instead of being stubborn and trying my very best to just push through it, and then crippling myself in the process.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Bulgarian split squats, because I don't know why every now and then I get the temptation to bring them back in. And you might have seen I've got this, it looks convoluted, but I've got quite the setup. So rear foot, front foot elevated, and I'm using a safety bar squat. Is that what it's called? Safety bar squats? Yeah, safety bar. Anyway, and so then my arms
weird,
can...
right, Steve? Because it's SSB.
Yeah, it's weird.
And not SBS. It always kind of confuses me. Why the hell is it called safety bar squats? Why not safety squat? I don't know.
It's annoying. Yeah. So then I use my free arms for like stability, and I can really like rock onto that front foot. And actually I let my come onto my toes and lift my heel a little bit. And I do these quite light as well as like what do I do them after? Leg press, I think. And man, you don't need much load and it's very disruptive. And I'm doing the length and partial start as well. So I'm not coming all the way to the top. I'm just constantly like coming down and sinking deep into it. And they've been pretty gnarly. But like you said, the actual stimulus to fatigue trade-off there is pretty good a lot of the time, at least for now. But yeah, I also was talking about your back because my back has flared up again.
Oh no.
So it's the same issue as I had last time, but not as severe. And I need to get to the bottom of it. There's clearly something that's not quite right. It's not just technique, because I'm not allowing my back to get into those more risky flexion positions. My RDLs are way less deep than I used to do them. My leg press, I'm not letting my lower back round at all. So it just seems to get pissed off after RDLs. So anyway, I'm talking to Mike about it, and we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it. And having some direction from someone you trust is huge. I think even within, like you probably have with your clients, especially who are coaches, and they were like, wow, it's so nice to have someone just tell me what to do. And so having that kind of reassurance from Mike, it's going to get better. Look into this, do this exercise, and that should help. But I'm glad today, at least, I did RDLs. When did I do them? Friday? So it flared up after Friday, and it's my SI joint for whatever reason. And then that leads to my hip. I have hip pain, and then it goes down to my knee, and I get knee pain. And so super annoying. Yeah. But I've realized my, what's it called? My, the outside of my thigh on my left, is it TFL? I think that's what it is. Is
which
super tight compared to
my
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so tight, I've realized. So Mike thinks it's like it's something going on there that I need to kind of work around. But every time I stretch out that TFL, the pain kind of relieves. So I'm like, oh, I need to do more of that.
But that's great to hear and see already if you are doing something and you have immediate biofeedback.
Yeah.
I think that is great, because that is sometimes missing for me, that maybe there are just a couple of things going on at the same time. Could very well be we can't really look into my body, and whenever I do something, it's not that there's an immediate relief, unfortunately. So it's great to hear that you kind of already know what it is and what to work on.
Yeah, hopefully. But it's just frustrating. I think it's like you said, these things happen, and you just have to, once you have been lifting for like 10 years, it's hard, and you've been training hard as a bodybuilder and pushing things, or had some powerlifting, especially in your routine and stuff. These things just inevitably, like you said, there is some wear and tear to some degree at least.
The unfortunate thing is for you right now, you wanted to build, of course, momentum, or you have built momentum. I mean, it sounds like, well, I made it sound like you just started with the cutting phase, but it has already been a while.
True.
And that is, of course, the prep. Most of the people are interested, of course, of a smooth prep, but that is the optimal scenario. And kind of we all know that in life, most things aren't really always going according to plan. So yeah. I'm sorry to hear that it has flared up now, which is still, of course, there's a silver lining that it's not kind of shortly before a show or something like this. But at the same time, you want to, of course, have a smooth sail here and just push through it and keep that momentum going, so that also from a psychological perspective, I'm fresh, I'm energetic to some extent, instead of having something that may distract you.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'll see how it goes today. I've got bent over rows. It tends to be okay in bent over rows. It tends to be okay when I'm training. It's after I do mostly hip hinging, it's then tight. And like I said, I was getting all that referral pain. But today, so I said I did that on Friday. Saturday was upper, lower on Sunday, but nothing in that lower body session aggravates it. And then I had a rest day yesterday. So today, it's actually really relieving, because yesterday I was sat for a lot of the day and it was just, or stood, wherever I was in pain. Whereas today I'm like, oh, I can sit here and I wouldn't know I have any injury down there. So it's really relieving to know it's at least recovering relatively quickly at the moment. I just have to keep it doing that, because it's like you said, I don't want to have that sort of injury going through a prep, especially if it's hip, knee, leg training that starts getting impacted. That's not good. But I guess I can talk about prep now, because essentially I'm in prep now, because it was always like, am I in prep? Aren't I in prep? And I was kind of referring it to prep.
It's now officially prep.
I think now we can officially call it prep, because I had 2 weeks off prep because I had a diet break, and then last week was also a diet break. I think I actually mentioned that last time, maybe, because Cliff had already given me my numbers by then, and he increased my carbs by 20 grams as well. My weight did come up this time, though I didn't maintain. And so, from yesterday, I've started back to my low numbers, and prep is like officially started. So I'm excited.
How was it feeling for you? It's kind of the same as when you're 1 year old and someone is asking you, like, how does it feel to be like 35 years old?
Yeah. So I'm at the moment, I feel just the same as I did the last couple of weeks. I don't know if the body fat I'm at right now is sustainable long term or not. I might be slightly under that, just because for those 2 weeks I was still food focused to some extent. It wasn't like I could just live life and not worry about anything I was eating. But I think part of that's also like, well, you just came out of like a structured dieting phase for 10 weeks. Were you going to be able to just go into like free living style of eating? So I don't know if I stayed there for an extended period of time, I'd be all right. But definitely, I think at this point, the last 10 pounds to come off somewhere around that number, I don't know exactly how much, it's going to start pinching for sure. So, but I'm excited for that. I'm going to embrace it. It's part of the challenge, right? And to reveal new levels of condition is going to be cool, and kind of reveal the muscle mass that hopefully I've developed over the last years. Because I keep getting told that I look dramatically different than like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've made like heaps of progress. And I'm like, I hope I have, but I'm not I'm kind of skeptical. I don't think I look that much improved from 2021. I think I look improved, but we'll see.
Maybe you've just upped your Instagram game.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think the lighting in here is decent, like where I do my check-ins, but it's not crazy. The lighting in Yorkies is crazy, to be fair.
Yeah. And also the pictures from the last time that you did
at the cut, right?
Yeah, exactly. The client meetup, and then the videographer who has been there, and then those pictures, the videos, the images. It was impressive.
I need to do more of that.
Peak bulk, wasn't it?
It was not peak. I was a little bit after, not too far after a mini cut, I don't think, actually. But it was considerably heavier than I am now. Like good, nearly 10 pounds up than I am now. Yeah. So,
how do you feel about all of the people who are about to compete this year? Because I've seen that a lot of impressive people are competing this year.
Yeah. I can name probably like 3 to 5 people that I know are good who are going to be in my class at the WNBF. And I kind of wish I didn't know, to be honest with you, because it's nice just going through it with ignorance. But I mean, I put myself out there and people can know they're competing with me also. So I'm not helping anyone else in that regard. I think I just need to focus on myself and do what I'm doing. I actually had this chat with my client, Rob, who went to Worlds and came second, almost got his pro card last year. And I essentially said to him, like, there's a fine line between being overconfident and underconfident. And I think being overconfident and egoistic is just as bad as being underconfident and doubting yourself. You've got to ride somewhere in that middle. And I would actually say being slightly overconfident is better than being underconfident, because it just shows in your day-to-day actions and also on stage. So I know for myself, I'm someone who tends to side with that, trying to be, I don't know, like self-doubt is a big part of my struggle. So I'm trying to not let myself fall into, man, look at all these guys who are competing, they're going to destroy me type of thing. Versus... Yeah,
but most of the time, the people who are confident, who think highly of themselves, are most of the time performing better.
Yes,
and especially like in bodybuilding, but also in other professional sports. This is why most bigger sports teams, they have like psychologists there who then teach them kind of visualization, and also just before a game, right? Being prepared just to deliver your very best.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the time, you really don't know how you're going to fare, because you can see one person, and this is what I'm always very aware of. People see me and they think I look very good. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not seeing me stand next to other people with certain frames and structures and, you know, muscularity. So it's hard. And you're not seeing me under the same lighting. So all that matters for bodybuilding is how you fucking look on that day, on that stage. It doesn't matter how you look in the gym with a pump or whatever. So actually trying to assess yourself versus other people via social media images, it's no good. It's not going to fare, because actually it even happened, I won't name the person, but very well-known individual in the space with a large following. His social media pictures looked awesome. You see him on stage and it was like, well, that didn't translate. I don't want to be that person. I want my look on stage to be, if anything, better than on social media. But
it's like I said to you, Steve, the last time it has already been a long time, when we were in Vienna at Das Gym and we met Alexander, and he was in peak off season during that time. And I was shocked and impressed at the same time how big he actually is, because on the pictures, he has a very aesthetic physique. But I think because you're most of the time only seeing kind of single pictures of him, he always doesn't really look the biggest. And when I saw him in real life, I was kind of blown away, like how big he actually is, and which makes sense. I mean, he's a natural pro. You need to have a decent amount of size and musculature in order to be able to pull this off. But I was impressed. And this is the way that you want to have it, and not the other way around. It's kind of like a Tinder date.
Yes, you don't want to be a catfish or whatever it would be, the bodybuilding version.
Exactly.
And I have had it in the past where people have been like, oh, you're bigger than, like, in person than on, like, social media, what I was expecting. I don't want it to become the opposite for sure. Yeah. But I mean, hey, if it helps the social media game, as we said last time, this is a part of the business. So it's a good thing. It is. But yeah, I'm just excited. Is there anyone you've seen who's competing where you're like, oh, that's going to be trouble for Steve? I don't know if there's anyone you've seen.
No, that's not what I've been thinking, but I've seen Natty News Daily posting about a lot of natties who are either in the midst of their off season or starting the prep or in the midst of prep already. I was just like realizing that a lot of very, very good bodybuilders are competing this year. Doesn't necessarily mean that you will meet them, of course, or compete against them, but maybe it's also there. You live in a small bubble and that's all you see. Your wife is pregnant and all you see around you are now pregnant women, for example, right? Could very well be that because you are now prepping, I see lots of great bodybuilders stepping on stage.
You probably saw it. I don't know their names offhand, but I think they're both German. And they were both like 15 weeks out or something. And one of them won, is it the IMBF, like natural championship, European championship. And then the other one like placed second. It's like within his class there.
But do you mean Daniel Kubek? And the other one was Ramon.
R began with an R for sure.
Ramon Liechenbach?
Both
something
pros
like this
within the WNBF.
Yeah. I mean, Germany has some insane natural bodybuilders, and I don't know. I mean, I'm German. What happened to me?
It's because you're on that island.
Yeah, probably
too far away from
absolutely
elite genetics.
Yeah, the water was different. Maybe we were just like cut off from the gains when I was growing up. Fucking hell, because I'm seeing some natural bodybuilders, and I just can't believe at times that this is what some people look like naturally. And this is also why I do understand why some people are so skeptical about them being natural, when in reality, I do believe that they are natural, especially when they are competing in those federations that have pretty strict rules and also pretty strict kind of drug testing and all that kind of stuff. And of course, yes, you can always cheat the system if you really want to. But if you're competing back to back and on several occasions, it increases the likelihood that you're being caught, in my opinion. And it's just impressive that there's not just like one impressive bodybuilder out of Germany, natural bodybuilder, but there are plenty. It's like, I don't know. I can think of at least 5, and probably if I take the time, like 10 natural kind of world champions.
Yeah. Just the longer I do this, the more I realize and the more I consider anyone who, not anyone, but most people who claim natural, I side with, unless there's something incredibly doubtful about their natural status. I just tend to believe them, especially if they compete naturally. Although I do think it would be ignorant to believe that everyone like thinks the way we do in terms of how it would be crazy to try and cheat a drug test like that. I can't understand it, especially for natural shows where like the credibility and the rewards you get and everything. Actually, on that point, and I might bring this up on a podcast soon, Jeff Said, do you know Jeff Said? Said, the guy, so he competed naturally recently. After like a decade of not competing. He was the youngest IFBB pro as a men's physique competitor. But yeah, anyway, he's getting loads of shit because everyone just assumed he was on gear, and he's never claimed, he's always claimed to be natural. He recently came out with a video.
Though, I think that back then we had a different perception of what's naturally possible. Just remember the time, and I mean, we've always brought up the example with Hugh Jackman and also Brad Pitt, for example, that this was kind of this shit, like Brad Pitt Fight Club. Now you take a look at it, and people give that person shit online. They right? Back then it was like the thing that you wanted to attain, and now it's kind of the most pathetic shit that the internet has ever seen. And there's a massive discrepancy there, but this is also, it just goes to show how the perception for the vast majority of people has changed in that regard as well. And for me too, what I would have thought never been possible in regards to the natural potential has changed completely, just because you've been in the game for longer and you've seen more and more of a vast amount of people who are massive. And the more you see, the less likely it becomes that everyone is kind of on gear. It's kind of the same when also here at Tinfoil Hat, everyone says like all of the doctors are being bought by the pharma companies. Like, just let that sink for a moment. How many people are studying, just take Germany alone, how many people are studying medicine? Do you think that every fucking one of them is being bought and not one of them is talking about it at some point, kind of whistleblower like? It's absolutely fucking insane, right? And it's kind of the same here as well. The more people there are at the top of natural bodybuilding with that caliber, do you think that everyone is taking gear and everyone is kind of in their small circle? It's kind of like a exclusive club. They are kind of giggling and laughing about how stupid the drug testing is, and we are cheating. It's just ridiculous. I think at some point you just have to come to terms with there being very impressive people worldwide. And also there, think about it. We have 8 billion people on Earth. So the likelihood that there are 100, 200, 300 very impressive natural bodybuilders not going down the enhanced route is of course there. And this has also then changed my perception on someone like Natty. You brought her up. At first, of course, because I was unknowledgeable and I didn't really know what's possible, I was always thinking like, nah, this isn't possible. You can't tell me that a female can look that way. And now, I do believe that she's natural, right? And many people would be shocked to hear that. But just a fact alone, she's been doing this since 20 years or something like this. And if she was really on drugs, just take a look at other females who have been on gear for over 20 years and just listen to them talk. You can even hear it in their voices, right? Even if they claim to be natural since a long time, right? At some point, those androgenic effects will shine through. You can fight it, but those changes will still come through at some point. And just that fact alone just makes me believe, just that fact alone, on top of other things, but makes me believe that she's natural. Like if you do things for 20 years or over 20 years and those androgenic features haven't really shined through, especially like the voice not changing, I mean, come on.
I think your point of, because we're exposed to it so much more, we get more awareness of what's actually achievable, whereas before, don't know, on YouTube, I always bring up like Matt Ogus, and I was skeptical that he was natural for the longest time, but he started very early. And if you have good genetics, like early on, it can go a long way. And I think people are often really ignorant to the role of lighting, angles, like conditioning, all things that can make you look much more enhanced than you are, but also like muscle bellies and insertions. We brought it up last time, I think. Some people have this rib cage where their lats they just stand relaxed, but they look athletic because their lats are like wrapping round and they've got a small waist and they have like broad shoulders and capped off delts. It's funny, most people, not me either. I always look at when I like set up for my front relaxed and I'm just like walking around, I'm like, man, I just look like this. I look thick, I look big, sure, but I just look like blocky. I don't look like there's shape. And then I hit the pose and it's like, oh, their shape comes. But it's funny, Love Island's on at the moment because we know we like our trash TV and the Hall household, Hall can, I guess. And there's some guys on there where I'm just like, you can see it really in their physiques. Some of them, there's this black guy in there and he just has the physique you want. Like I look at him, I'm like, you would fucking be a great bodybuilder. His waist is tiny. He's got like a nice thick chest. His shoulders are capped. I don't know how his legs look. He's got that at least men's physique look. And that's what Jeff Said has. You look at him, his waist is freaking tiny. He has really nice big pecs. His shoulders are capped. He's not huge, but he just is built and put together really well. So you probably meet someone like that in person, you might be like, oh, I'm a bit underwhelming because online, like the pictures just look incredible. And he's really good at photography and getting all that done too. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of one of those, again, where people are just very ignorant to all the levels of this discussion.
And I mean, he has a fantastic physique, as you rightly put so yourself, but over the last 10 years, how much has he really changed? If he was on like proper gear over that time frame, you would see a significant change. You wouldn't even need to try that hard and you would still look completely different after 10 years of being on. And it is his occupation. So I would very much assume that if he goes on and it is his living, the likelihood of you going off again is much more decreased, right? If your entire reputation is behind the way that you look. And because of those kind of facts, right? And also because of your perception changing, like back then, he was seen as like, this can't be naturally achieved. And now you look at him and be like, yeah, no, this looks good. But I mean, take a look at the elite of natural bodybuilding. And he's one of many, so to speak.
Yeah. It's funny. Some people seem to just, and I remember talking to, I think it was ages ago, we had a podcast on genetics. It was Mike and Greg Nuckols. And essentially they spoke about how some people seem to have this, like, they just see really quick growth and then they just essentially kind of plateau. This might be a Jeff Said. Whereas other people, they don't see very quick gains, but they just continue to trickle up over time. And I don't know if that's an observed thing or if that's a reality of that's how some genetics are expressed. But for me, like I definitely, after 5 years, look nothing like Jeff. But after another 5 years, like it's not like I'm miles behind this physique anymore and he hasn't improved that much. So it's like I kind of caught up in a sense. So I don't know, but there just does seem to be some people who see this like just general trickle up. They continue to see improvements. I'd say you're similar in that regard. You never saw like a huge spurt of like, and then plateau. Whereas, yeah, you get some people who just, they seem to gain it very quickly in their career and then nothing much comes afterwards. And there could be multiple reasons that's the case. Maybe people like us battle longer and harder for it. And they kind of are like, oh, like I've kind of got the physique I want. Let's not worry about it. But I imagine there's some people that isn't the case for. It's just interesting to observe.
Absolutely. And our starting point was quite similar as well. You've been very, very skinny. Same goes for me. And seeing then the development is, in my opinion, we don't really share that often kind of before and after, Steve.
I do. You don't.
Yeah. And
you should more.
Yeah, probably, because it is then that you realize, and other people are also seeing how much has changed already. And also, just from my personal experience as a coach, same goes for you, Steve, the norm isn't your development, Steve, or my development. That is not the norm. That is not the process that many people go through of like, okay, this is what your starting point is, and now you look quite impressive. You know, like how many people would like to look like you, Steve, with the amount of muscle mass and all that kind of stuff. But how long would it take for people? Like probably also kind of 10 years, if not even longer. And not many people are actually going through with it. Right? Most people stick with it for like 1, 2, up to 5 years, but never really kind of with the right attention and required necessary commitment to the entire task, which is absolutely all right. Most people have other obligations, other things to focus on, but most people will never really get to that point of a before and after picture. Yes, people can get lean and by that already visually look quite different, but it's never the thing of like you are now lean and also big at the same time. It's very, very rare that you see a transformation like this.
Is that the natural bodybuilding, should say specifically natural bodybuilding, epitomizes delayed gratification. It's just so much delayed gratification. And I don't know what allowed me to, well, no, I do know. It's just, I fell in love with the process, probably helped by this being my career as well, though, massively helped by that. I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't doing this as my career. Would I have consisted for as long? I don't know. I'd hope I would, because I enjoy the process so much. But you just never quite know if you're going to be able to, do that. And it's hard. Like hindsight is 2020, right? It's just, I'm glad that I did it, but, and I don't think I'm anything special. So I do think other people, if they wanted to achieve similar, they could. It's just, like you said, you have to invest a lot of time and effort into it.
Yeah, and also don't be discouraged by the fact that it would probably take you 10 years, because if you just start and get going, maybe you build the momentum that then takes you to the 10-year mark or even longer than this, or maybe even not. And still you would do something positive for your overall body, for your health, and also you will still already look much, much better than previously. But the transformation that someone like you has, Steve, is, in my personal experience, very, very rare. And it's being sold as this is kind of a norm, which it isn't.
Yeah. Did you see... Yeah, you did see it, right? My reel on Tony, when I responded, like what's it called?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I was just like...
just this discussion makes me think of it. If anyone didn't see that reel, I just couldn't believe he made it. Yeah. I was like, how's this even legal? I don't know. He's basically just telling people to go on gear. One of my old athletes
actually sent me that via Instagram, and I was just like, what am I even supposed to be saying? Because he's asked like my thoughts, and I was very much...
It might have been the same person that sent it to me.
I was very politically correct and said like, yeah, I mean, if that's his opinion, totally fair enough, but I pretty much disagree. And then he came back to me saying like, this fitness industry is a shit show. And I said like, yeah, these are basically my thoughts, but I was just trying to be politically correct.
Less politically correct, Pascal. You'll do far better on social media. People like this blunt opinion as best you can. I'm trying to be better at it. I'm still a little bit politically correct, but I at least had a little bit of a just, this is a joke, right? It's just kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, the problem is, Steve, that I'm not good at dealing with
like the negative.
Yeah, I can easily deal with negativity when I think and feel like this is just a troll, for example. But if I have the feeling that someone is very much convinced that their statement is correct, when in reality it's very unlikely to be correct, then I'm just getting wound up. And maybe I'm now feeding the trolls in the comment section. But maybe I should just be more vanilla, or very much go down the rabbit hole of being very much controversial, and just not look at the comments.
Yeah, don't look at the comments.
Or turn off commenting.
Yeah, you could do that. It's funny, someone just very briefly commented on my leg press reel that went not viral, but it got hundreds of thousands of views, and they were just like, lol, you're giving leg training advice, you have no legs. And I was just like, should I go back and be like, how am I leg pressing if I have no legs? And I was like, why would I say that? He's obviously not commenting for that reason. And I just was going through my head, I'm like, Steve, don't reply. Yeah. It's like, should I just delete it and block him? I was like, no, just leave it. Don't do anything.
It's hard though.
Yeah, it's very hard. I also was like, I could go back to him and be like, show me your legs. I bet you I can squat more than you. I have bigger legs than you. And I was like, shut up, Steve. Don't go down. You're feeding. That's feeding the trolls. That's what they want.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I wanted to say something, but I'll leave it at that.
Otherwise, we'll get trolls again.
Yeah, exactly. We're also coming up on time. And by the way, guys, last time Steve was asking for like Pascal in the comment section, and I was so confused because every single time that I opened up the comment section, I was just like, Pascal. And I thought that people are directly addressing me and talking to me. And I was just like, oh, what is it again? What did I say to rub people the wrong way? And it turned out that it was just like, for the algorithm that Steve requested. So next time I want people to comment just Steve in the comment section.
That's going to confuse me.
Ask a question to Steve that is very, very lengthy, very much impossible to answer, so that Steve is busy with just like maybe reading the comments in the comment section. And feel free to use something like ChatGPT so that you don't really need, exactly, so that you don't spend that time. The only thing that you spend time on is opening up ChatGPT and write maybe one sentence. That is enough, and ask it to then expand on it in like 2 or 3 paragraphs. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for listening, tuning in, and hopefully you're hitting the like, subscribe, and also comment in the comment section below, of course, right? So I guess I'll speak to you guys soon.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.